Good Wednesday afternoon to you. Welcome to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. It's a pleasure to be with you on this hump day. And if you were here in Northern Nevada, it is a hot hump day, as Jack said a moment ago. My goodness. Well, it was lukewarm on Wall Street today. How about that? One industry doing really well, another one not doing so well. So we'll call it a mixed lukewarm day today. But you know what? Enough of the chatter. Let's get down to business, shall we? Got a great show lined up for you this afternoon. We find ourselves, again, each and every Wednesday, I'm trying to bring you an estate planning topic to educate you, right? And today's a great one. It really is. Because what we find ourselves going through right now is a really interesting situation in many aspects. This is what I'm finding from talking to many of you after starting our estate planning business, specializedtrust.com. There's a lot of misinformation going on out there. And not only because this is not your area of expertise like it is mine, but there's so many things you hear in the news, or more importantly, you hear from friends or family. I need an estate plan. I don't need an estate plan. I'm not rich. I don't need all these fallacies that you've heard over and over again. Well, today I'm going to break some of those for you. And here's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be discussing for you, after I get through my stock market recap, the 7 estate planning mistakes that could literally cost your family thousands of dollars. It could cost your family months of frustration and years of unnecessary stress. And you know the shocking part? Most families don't even discover these mistakes until it's too late. When I say it's too late, that's until a death or incapacity occurs. I don't ever want that to happen to you. So today I'm going to uncover the most common estate planning problems that I see. And then I've got a very special announcement of an upcoming educational webinar I'm going to be hosting next Wednesday for you to help you identify gaps that you may have in your own estate plan. If you even have an estate plan. If you don't, I want to convince you to get one, because again, the stories I could share with you over my 36-year career of families devastated when they thought there was an estate plan, but this wasn't done right. This wasn't done right. All these different problems, or they didn't have one, which makes things even worse. Or in a situation like I dealt with, which was the driving force to me creating Specialized Trust. And that is a family member that you didn't even know how to trust. And they did have one thinking everything was fine, but an attorney dropped the ball and it wasn't fine. And really messed over the family, to say the least. You've heard my story. I won't bore you with it again. So gonna be again a great topic. 7 estate planning mistakes that could cost your family everything will be my topic. That'll be momentarily. Let's get down to the stock market side. So we find ourselves going back to this morning, and it was a day once again where we had tremendous strength, right? I told you yesterday, hang in there. Yesterday was nothing more than a portfolio rebalancing going on, getting ready for the end of the month, end of the quarter. And that's what absolutely it appeared to be. We had pretty good strength, early in the pre-market session around the 5 o'clock hour. Dow futures were up almost 180. NASDAQs were up almost 300. S&Ps were up about 43. Then we kind of began to fade as we went into the opening bell at 6:30. And when it was all said and done, the Dow hung in there pretty well, but we did start to see weakness occurring once again in the NASDAQ. All those semiconductor, those memory names like Micron, et cetera, that sold off heavily yesterday, well, they bottomed back this morning. Well, at least for the time being. And then as the day progressed, those big tech names digressed. They began to sell them off, take some profit taking. And I think one of the main reasons that we saw that is because probably one of the most important earnings numbers that the street was looking for this entire earnings season, which is just about wrapped up, was the aforementioned Micron. You see, Micron now has become a barometer. I really honestly feel it is more a barometer for the health of the AI, the memory space, the chips, etc., more so than even NVIDIA now. Notice you're not even hearing anybody talk about NVIDIA. It's all about Micron. Now, this has been an incredible stock, by the way. 52-week range on MU, $103.38, all the way up to $1,213.56. Been one heck of a ride, right? Imagine having a few thousand shares of that. Well, it's been under a lot of pressure recently. And again, more so on a rotation basis. But as I said last night on the show, and I said throughout my stock updates this morning, watch Micron today. And again, it's become a barometer of the tech space because they're going to release earnings numbers after the close. And boy, did they release earnings numbers after the close. Proud to say the stock is rebounding sharply. Finished the day down $3.26, just a 0.31% loss. Closed at $1,048.51. I'm watching it right now in the after hours session. Stock is up $144.81. 13.81. That's just, again, right now. The earnings numbers came in as follows. Revenue, $41.46 billion. Estimates, $35.84 billion. Earnings per share adjusted $25.11. Estimates $20.78. Revenue increased from $9.3 billion a year ago. Think about that. $9.3 billion for the same period a year ago to now $41.46 billion. For the current quarter, the company said they expect revenue of about $50 billion, up from the $11.3 billion a year earlier. Analysts were looking way off, $43.58 billion. Memory prices have skyrocketed in the last couple of years as the AI chips continue to eat up the production capacity of the small crop of vendors. Really, remember, there's not many companies out there that make the chips. And then, of course, we have the data center demand increasing day by day, literally. So prices are rising for memory used in smartphones, laptops, cars, telephones, you name it, right? We have chips in everything these days. Their CEO said the following: our customers are recognizing that supply shortages in memory and storage will take considerable time to improve, even as we expect industry supply to improve gradually in the year 2028. Well, again, Micron's turned into Wall Street's darling, and so investors are being rewarded. And again, the stock has been under pressure these last couple of days, rebounded a bit. Within the last week, I'll call it, we've had some really big strong days and some really big weak days. This hopefully will calm things down. And then we'll start to see a little bit more confidence coming back into the tech space. That's the hope. That's, again, how important Micron is to the tech space now. And again, if you may not know the company, but they have just absolutely become a barometer. Let me check the futures, and boy, is it having an impact. Oh my gosh. Let's hope these hold. Futures have started trading 14 minutes ago. NASDAQ futures right now up 639 points. My goodness, that's incredible. Dow futures up 204, S&Ps are up 65. This is what I've said on the show yesterday. All you need is one positive catalyst, and all the naysayers go, I can't buck this trend. I am not going to, as we call it, fight the tape. Best piece of advice I was given when I was a young broker by a very seasoned veteran. Don't fight the tape. Don't fight the Fed, John. Still remember it like it was yesterday. So here you are, major tech player, reporting blowout earnings numbers, and look at what the futures are doing. So this is going to be a great catalyst going into tomorrow. Again, if these gains can hold overnight. It's still very, very early, but man, oh man, do we like seeing that. So that was one of the major issues today. Just a little bit of hesitation going in. Again, never know what these companies are going to report. So how we finish is the following. Again, very modest day on the Dow side of things, and again, modest losses on the NASDAQ side of things. So we finished on the Dow Jones Industrial Average with a very small gain of 182, just 0.35. And the reason I say small, I know it sounds like a lot, but you got to remember we're touching almost 52,000 on the Dow. Percentage-wise, that 182-point gain, it's only 0.35%. I got to continue to remind myself. It's like, man, that's the early days, 182 points, my gosh, you pop the champagne bottles. Now it's just nothing, right? 0.35%. NASDAQ, though, lost 110.43%, and the S&P lost 7 points. On the commodity side of things today, this was another very positive catalyst. We had a couple things coming out today, early in the pre-market session. Number one, President said that ships are sailing through the Strait of Hormuz now. So we immediately saw an impact in oil prices, driving oil down. I was hoping that we could hold below 70 to say that on the show today. We didn't quite hit it, but we did hit it a couple times intraday where we broke the 70 mark. We're at 70.52 is where we closed at. Think about that for a second. We're up to what, 112 or so at the height of the war. So 70.52 a barrel, down $2.86 a barrel today. Gold, well, if there's no fears of inflation, people are dumping gold. 141.50 loss on gold. $141.50. Closed at $4,007.40 an ounce. And boy, this was the other great positive catalyst. Great action in the bond market today. 10-year yield down 9 basis points to a close of 4 point. So it was, like I said, it was strength across the board, but hesitation on the NASDAQ side going into Micron's earnings numbers. So we'll take it. It was a good day. We also had new home sales. Really, that was the only report that we had on the calendar as far as major numbers. Tomorrow's going to be completely different. I'm going to be one busy guy tomorrow morning when everything releases. It seems like at 5:30. But new home sales checked in for the month of May this morning at 7 o'clock. Down 7.3% month over month. So sparked a little bit of selling pressure in the home builders. Let's see. Anybody else really stand out? Well, Lennar finished the day strong, 6.42% gain. Speaking of the home builders, up $5.61. Big outperformer in that sector. 92.96 was the closing level. Pulte up $9.15. Micron for the day was down $4.55. Google, which I had a note, I apologize. The news broke during the show yesterday and I just ran out of time. Google is going to be replacing Verizon in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. I believe it's going to be before the open on June the 29th. So coming up here very quickly. That means, of course, all those indexes, ETFs, et cetera, that track the Dow, they've got to buy Google. So that's always a good thing. But stock didn't really react today. It moved up in the after hours yesterday when the news broke, but finished the day down $1.06 to a price of $345.02. All right, that's about it. Like I said, it wasn't really a very heavy news day whatsoever. No real major movers, just a lot of anticipation going into Micron's earnings. We got the good news. Now let's see what happens overnight and into tomorrow. All right, when we come back, I'm going to get a head start because I got a lot to talk to you about on the 7 estate planning mistakes that could cost your family everything. Back to the Jon Sanchez Show on Newstalk 780 KOH. I hope you had a good Wednesday, good hump day. Seeing weekend right around the corner, aren't you? Yeah, I know. It's going to be here before we know it. I just cannot believe how fast these weeks are flying by. All right, let's get down to today's topic. But first, if you just joined us, again, very quiet mixed session today. Dow rose 182, NASDAQ lost 110, the S&P -7. But again, it was all about Micron's earnings numbers, which were absolutely amazing after the close today, and futures just soaring at this point. Again, early reaction, no telling what's going to happen overnight or by the time the opening bell rings at 6:30 tomorrow. But for the moment, hey, we're going to enjoy it. All right, I made you a promise, and I'm going to stick to it. Each and every Wednesday, I'm bringing you an estate planning topic. Once again, if those of you may not be aware, I launched a new business a few months back called specializedtrust.com. Specialized Trust and Estate Plan is the name. And you can find it at specializedtrust.com. I did it because, again, I was a victim of poor estate planning by an attorney with my father who passed away a little over a year ago. And I swore I'd never let this happen again. So we have created a very, very unique estate planning business. We can do full-blown estate plans, irrevocable trust, living trust, wills, everything that you need. And I had a webinar, gosh, I guess it was 3 weeks ago already. So it's time to do another one. And I want to, I'll tell you when we go to break what this webinar is going to be about, but I want to get to today's topic first. I've titled today's topic, the 7 estate planning mistakes that could cost your family everything. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I've seen it, folks. It can cost your family everything. I'll never forget when I opened my Reno office. I was raised in Reno, moved away, and then came back and opened the office in, gosh, what was it? 2004, I guess it was. One of the first new clients that I got, this beautiful little old tiny lady. She was about 80 years old. She came in, literally started crying before she even sat down in my chair. And I said, my gosh, what's wrong? And she goes, we're wiped out. I said, what do you mean we're wiped out? And she went on to give me a story that her and her husband were very wealthy, been around Reno for years, multimillionaires, very successful entrepreneurs. And her husband got put into assisted living. And what was supposed to be your typical 1-2 year stay, it drug on for years and years. And she spent every dollar that they had to support him. And they were basically destitute. She was literally living out of a hotel. They had nothing. So they didn't plan properly for long-term care, number one, which is obviously something I'm very passionate about. But they also didn't have an estate plan, and things just began to disappear. And so, when we talk about estate planning mistakes, again, I'm not being dramatic when I say they literally could cost your family everything. They literally can. I mean, I could give you story after story of families that did everything right? They had a trust, or they came close to having a trust. They had everything correct, but then something wasn't right? Something didn't get funded, or the estate got challenged and they lost. I mean, there's thousands and countless of stories, millions of stories. So this is reality, folks. This is reality. And once again, I'll break the misnomer right from the beginning here. Estate planning is not just for the wealthy, right? It is not. I don't care how much money you have. Everybody needs an estate plan. And especially those of you that have children at home, or your grandparents, you have grandchildren. There are so many planning strategies that can be utilized in a solid estate plan to minimize taxes, to protect assets, to do all the things that you want to do. But if you die intestate, meaning without a will, if you die without a trust, etc., you're leaving it up to the courts to make that decision. You've heard that story. I just wanted to kind of start that with that. But let's talk about those of you that do have a trust. Okay? You believe, hey, you know what? I signed the trust. I'm done. Unfortunately, that's not true. After reviewing hundreds, if not thousands, of estate plans over my career, I have discovered the following. So many families have estate planning problems they don't even know exist. It's like that hidden problem that is lurking out there, but they don't even know about it. You see, some have no plan at all. Others have plans that are outdated. I mean, I just restated a trust that was 17 years old the other day. I did one a couple days before that. It was about 13 years old. Did one before that was written in another state. That was like 10 years old. Very, very common problem, right? It's not your fault. Again, you were taught and believe that I have an estate plan, I have a trust, I paid, got it done. That's all I need to do forever until the day I die. But that is not the case anymore. So they have a trust, it's outdated, maybe it's incomplete. Remember, things don't automatically go into your trust. So as I'll discuss here, momentarily, when you buy a major asset, let's say a rental property or another home or something like that, that needs to be put into the trust. Very common problem that I see is someone will, maybe they were, I don't know, in their 40s, 50s, whatever, when they got their trust created. And then time goes on and they decide, they're making more money. They want to buy a rental property. Well, they buy the rental. They put it joint tenants rights or survivorship, even though they had a trust. They forgot to move it into the trust. So guess what? Under that scenario, for those of you that don't know, if they died in that example, that rental property, it's going to probate. Rest of their estate may be fine if they funded it properly, meaning they retitled the assets, the taxable accounts, the checking account, the brokerage account. They moved their home into the trust, so on and so forth. But they left out that rental house. Again, they don't know. But that's what's called an incomplete, improperly funded trust. So it doesn't do what they want it to do. But again, they're sleeping well at night thinking everything is fine. But one unique thing about estate planning is this. The unfortunate reality is that most estate planning mistakes are never discovered until someone dies or until someone becomes incapacitated or a family member is forced to step in during a crisis, like happened with me. So when I come back from this break, I'm going to begin discussing the 7 estate planning mistakes that could cost your family everything. I'll be talking about having no estate plan at all. Believing your old estate plan is still good enough. It's just fine. I had it written. It's all done. Failing to properly fund the trust. Beneficiary designations that don't match the trust. Oh, that's a big one. Let's see, what else am I going to talk about? No durable powers of attorney. Yeah, another major problem I see. Failing to plan for the blended families. Very common today. And assuming my family will just, quote, figure it out. Yeah, those are the things. I'm going to be busy when I come back. Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. Happy Wednesday to all of you. Again, we had a mixed session today with a 182 gain on the Dow. NASDAQ lost 110. The S&P lower by 7. All right, we're just beginning our estate planning topic. Again, each and every Wednesday, I'm going to bring you a new topic to get you so knowledgeable on understanding this crazy world called estate planning. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I had a client the other day, just real quick side note, and then I'll get to our topic and tell you what the webinar is going to be about also. Had a client the other day really say something very, very flattering, I guess is the word. I reviewed their trust written by a local estate planning company, and there was a major provision in there that I caught that was wrong. And it would have resulted, had I not caught this, in a business going to a family member for pennies on the dollar instead of what he really wanted, which fair market value if he passed away. And we got done, had about an hour-long discussion, and he said, I got a new tagline for you, John. I said, what's that? He said, you guys build the wealth and you protect the wealth. I said, you know what? That is a great tagline, and it's true, right? All of you go to work every single day. You're diligent. You work hard. You save in your 401k. You're building your wealth. That's what you're taught to do. But no one's teaching you, other than me, to protect that wealth, right? I don't want all these years of hard work just to go by the wayside because you didn't know what to do. So that's my mission, to help all of you. It really is. So before I start on my topic, the 7 estate planning mistakes that could cost your family everything, let me get this out of the way. This webinar next Wednesday. Once again, as you know, these are purely educational webinars. Okay, it's going to be at 6 o'clock next Wednesday. Educational, that's it. And I've titled it, Do You Have an Estate Planning Problem? Because we're going to discuss what I'm going to just barely touch on today due to lack of time, the 7 most common estate planning mistakes. I'm going to go into great detail on these. 7 estate planning mistakes that families make. I'm also going to be talking at the webinar about what we do with outdated trusts, what we do with beneficiary designation errors, funding mistakes, powers of attorney. But remember, we have financial and called advanced directive, and then we have the medical side of it. And then other issues that I see popping up. Because again, many of you think you have a trust, everything's fine. Hopefully that's the case. But what I'm finding is it's not the case. Because time goes on, things change. Because I want to make sure you have no unnecessary stress for your family, no delays, no expenses, no probate court, no nothing. So if you already have a trust, or if you think you need one, I designed this webinar for you. My marketing team just knocked me over the head today because I literally decided today I wanted to do this. It's just a burning desire I have. So they have not had a chance to create the sign up on our website at specializedtrust.com. Still want to send you there. Look and see all the different packages we have, the articles I've written, so on and so forth. But for now, we're going to do it the old fashioned way, like we did the last webinar. Just send me an email personally, JohnJon at specializedtrust.com. Just say, sign me up. And I'll turn around and or have someone turn around and send you the Zoom invite. So Jon, Jon at specializedtrust.com. Again, next Wednesday, 6 p.m. I'm also curious if you guys would do me a favor. I've never done this, but some little feeling I have tells me that I may want to include this. If it is of interest to you guys, because I'm doing this all for you guys. I know the stuff. I'm trying to help you. If it's of interest to you for me to do a Saturday morning webinar, let's say, 9 o'clock for an hour, put that in your email to me. Say, John, yeah, I'd love to have a Saturday morning webinar. 6 o'clock, pretty good, right? You usually have dinner, you're home by that time. There's a lot of you, of course, that got the young kids, and man, it's so busy at home in the evening time that, you know what? Maybe we need to do a Saturday morning one. Be more than happy to. I work 7 days a week. So just, again, if I get enough of you wanting to do that, then maybe our next webinar we'll do a Saturday and a Wednesday one. So Jon Joen at specializedtrust.com. Just say interested in the Wednesday webinar, and I will send you the invite. And again, the title of that webinar, do you have an estate planning problem? All right. Speaking of problems, let's get down to some of the common problems that I see going on right now. So, as I said, when I started the show today, it really starts with you have an estate plan, you spent the money, you spent the time, you think everything is fine until it's not, right? Your family discovers, because you may not be here anymore, that it's outdated, incomplete, improperly funded, no longer accomplishes what you originally set out to do. Not your fault, but we need to correct it. So here's my 7 mistakes I'm going to hustle through. And again, go through great detail on the webinar. You have no estate plan at all. So what happens when someone dies without an estate plan? When I say estate plan, I'm talking a revocable trust. It's really simple. You've heard me say this a million times. Your estate's going to probate. Plain and simple. No problem if your spouse is still alive. Not an issue there in most cases. But it's when there's only, one of you left, and then that final person dies. No estate plan, meaning no revocable trust, your estate's going to probate. Your child or whomever you've named as your executor or successor trustee, they get to have a really fun time. They get to go deal with attorneys. They get to go deal with judges. They get to go deal with the court system. They get to go do all these fun things. And they're cussing you along the way saying, son of a gun, mom, son of a gun, dad. If you would have just spent a few $1,000 and had an estate plan done, I wouldn't be down here. I've told you many times, I've literally had clients who have had to quit their job, budding careers, to focus on settling the estate of mom and dad. Because it sometimes, depending upon the size of the estate, it literally is a full-time job, and it can drag on definitely for months, sometimes years, I've seen. So that's what happens. It's your choice. You have an estate plan, no probate. Don't have an estate plan, your estate's going to probate. Probate court, of course, besides it being costly, timely, they're going to determine who gets your money. I don't think any of us want that. The cost, the delays. I want to remind you again, the loss of privacy. When your estate goes to probate, anybody and their uncle can come in, knock on the door, sit down in the courtroom, and learn everything about all your assets. Family disputes, that's really the big one, of course. Family begins fighting. No, dad promised me this. No, mom promised me that. Yeah, it's a disaster. And then again, for those of you with young children, it's the guardianship issue. When you go to bed tonight, if you're wondering if you should have an estate plan, think about this if you have children. Do you want the court deciding who is going to raise your children? If you don't have a problem with that, then the next question you need to ask yourself is this. How in the heck is that person that you want the judge to decide to raise your children, how are they going to pay for it? It costs nearly $300,000 to raise a child these days, from birth to 18 years old. How are they going to pay for it? Those are the things our blended family estate plan covers. So guardianship issues for minor children. So as you see, I haven't really talked at all about money, because estate planning isn't about wealth. It's about protecting the people you love. Let's go to mistake number 2. You believe your old estate plan is good enough. As I said at the beginning of the show, hey, no problem. You know what? Got the estate plan done years ago. Everything's fine. Trust created 10, 15, 20 years ago. I'm seeing it. Every day I'm seeing it. Well, guess what? Maybe those kids we were just talking about, they were minors when you wrote the trust or had the trust written. They're adults now. Trust isn't accurate. Or how about the person you named as your successor trustee? They passed away. Maybe you don't like him anymore. I had one the other day. They don't like that person anymore. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe when I reviewed the trust and did the restatement, they're like, I can't believe I had that person named. I haven't talked to them in 20 years. Get them out of there. Marriage, divorce, births and deaths, meaning life changes in assets. But once again, I just had a discussion with an attorney right before the show today. People all the time, they have a trust. It was written years ago. They forget they're supposed to put any major assets into the trust as added to the trust, and they forget. In the story I gave you at the beginning of the show, you decide to maybe buy a rental or a second vacation home or something. You don't put it in the trust. Guess what? It's going to probate. The rest of your estate may be fine, but that's going to probate. And then most importantly, changes in laws. You can't believe how many things, especially after the Secure 2.0 Act changed or was implemented a few years ago after COVID, so many things in estate planning have changed. So again, when you wrote the trust, probably was very accurate at the time being. It reflected your life then. But does it really reflect your life today? Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. All right, we're going to get back to our topic once again, 7 estate planning mistakes that could cost your family everything. But again, a quick reminder of my upcoming webinar. Do you have an estate planning problem? Next Wednesday, 6 p.m., just send me an email at jon@specializedtrust.com. I'll turn around and send you the Zoom invite and look forward to seeing you. Again, this is for those of you that have existing trusts and those that are thinking about it. In the meantime, don't forget, you can always look all of our information at Specialized Trust on the specializedtrust.com. All right, I don't think I'm going to get through my 7, but let me go to number 3 as far as the 7 mistakes costing families lots of money. Mistake number 3. I touched on this briefly. Failing to properly fund the trust. I get a lot of questions. People are like, you talk about funding. What does that really mean? So funding is an estate planning term that just means you take your taxable asset, your home, your bank accounts, your taxable brokerage accounts, not retirement accounts, and you transfer the name or transfer the account into the name of the new living trust. That's called funding your trust. And if you don't do that, if it's not listed in there, guess what? It's unfunded, meaning that asset is going to probate. I used the example before we went to break. If you had a rental property or a vacation home, got a living trust, but you have that and you didn't fund it, meaning you didn't move it into the trust, it's going to probate. So you fail to fund the trust. Assets never transferred, real estate still owned individually or joint tenants, bank accounts remain outside the trust, LLC interest never assigned to the trust. All those things mean you've got a major estate planning problem. A great example or a great analogy, I should say, is I saw this the other day. Creating a trust without funding it is like buying a safe and leaving the door open. Think about that. Let's go to number 4 mistake. Beneficiary designations don't match. Here's a little quiz for you. Did you know that the beneficiaries that you have listed on your retirement accounts, let's say your 401k, your IRAs, etc., your life insurance, the quiz is this: what overrides, the beneficiary you named on the aforementioned forms or the beneficiaries you've named on your living trust or in your living trust? The answer is those that you named on those documents. That overrides the beneficiaries that you've listed in your trust. A lot of people don't know that. And there's a major problem, right? Especially you get into blended families and things, divorces. People say, yeah, I named, Sally as my beneficiary. Sally was my wife and named her as my beneficiary on my 401k. Well, Sally was your ex-wife. Nancy's your new wife. Sally needs to come off. Nancy needs to come on. And if you address that in the trust, guess what? Whoever you have on that form, as I said, that's where the money's going to go. There's a major, major case I was reading about the other day. Back east, a very, very wealthy doctor. I'm talking an estate worth like $13 million. Had an account with TIAA CREF and did estate planning, did everything, thought everything was fine. He dies. And that story is exactly what happened. He had different beneficiaries, meaning his grandchildren, listed on his TIAA CREF retirement account. He was a teacher or was a teacher, completely different than the instructions in the trust. They ended up going, I think it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the estate lost. And TIAA CREF held their ground and said, look, we have to follow the beneficiaries that are listed on the form, not what's in the trust. So that was a major, major case. Again, that wasn't too long ago. So something we'll discuss at the webinar. So IRAs, 401ks, life insurance, annuities, etc. Beneficiary designation, just remember this, always overrides the trust provision. Now, I want to give one little exception to this. We now have the ability to create what's called an IRA trust. And this is where we can write a trust. It's an additional trust outside the scope of your revocable trust that allows you to list your trust, your IRA trust, as your primary or contingent beneficiary. Now, what's so big deal about that? Well, in years past, I always recommended against that, right? Simply because if you die and you have your normal trust listed as beneficiary, that money has to be out of the account somewhere between 5 to 10 years, depending upon a number of circumstances. With the IRA trust, that does not hold. Not only can you extend out that time period that it's paid out, but what the clients really love is you get to determine when that beneficiary or beneficiaries receive their money. So for example, let's say you've got a 25-year-old kid. I just had this happen with a client the other day. You got a 25-year-old kid. Kid's not mature enough to handle pretty good inheritance when the time comes. So, or you have a child with special needs, whatever it is. Don't you want to control when and how they get that money? Well, you can if you have an IRA trust. And I'll go into more details. I'll do a whole show on that or a whole webinar on it. It's absolutely fascinating, but I just want to throw that out there. Mistake number 5, no durable power of attorney. What do you mean? Well, that's better known as your financial power of attorney. It deals with incapacity planning. What happens if you're laying there in bed? You can't make a decision. You're not with it. You're semi-conscious or unconscious. No one can make those investment decisions for you. And I say investment, that's last thing in the world. I'm talking having access to your checking account to pay the bills. Who's going to handle your financial management during your illness? Guess what? How about court-appointed conservatorships? We don't want that. In the family, yeah, they can't have access to it unless you have a durable power of attorney. So again, estate planning is not about death. It's also about disability and incapacity. The ones I'm going to leave off, the failing to plan for the blended family and assuming, quote, my family will figure it out. Again, I'll go through all these in much, much more detail, plus many other areas next Wednesday, 6 p.m. at our webinar. Do you have an estate planning problem? Just send me an email, john@specializedtrust.com. I'll turn around and get you that invite. God bless. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow on the Jon Sanchez Show.